doesn't look like there's any rain at least. And what did I read today? Lots about, I guess, banning certain drone parks and all that. How about this first one? This one says, China curbing drone part sales to Ukraine, US as export restrictions loom. As it says here, the Chinese government is expected to announce stricter export controls around drones made in China in early 2025. Manufacturers in the country are already pulling back on or stopping sales to the US and Europe, including Ukraine, according to a new report published on Monday. Chinese firms making batteries, motors, and flight controls for drones or unmanned aerial vehicles have either implemented shipment maximums or won't be shipping to the US or Europe going forward, according to multiple anonymous sources cited by Bloomberg. We already heard some companies like Skydio being affected by that as an example. The report doesn't name which drone parts firms are already implementing the restrictions, however, but this could have a big impact as China controls about 80% of the current drone market, according to US nonprofit Center for Strategic and International Studies. News of the pullback in incoming export rules comes just days after China sanctioned 13 more US companies, primarily drone firms, including Shield AI and Brink Drones, over US plans to sell weapons to Taiwan. In October, China sanctioned US drone maker Skydio, which supplies drones to Ukraine's military, reportedly because it provided drones to Taiwan's fire agency. That was the one where they mentioned they supplied them, I guess, one, for example, and they just went ahead and banned them, which kind of shows, I guess, they really wanted to do it too in many ways, huh? And with all that, they talk about how obviously pausing the manufacturing of things like batteries, drone parts, or whatever could be disastrous for places like Ukraine, I suppose. Although with that in mind, this was kind of interesting where apparently, I guess, in the US, they're going to mandate an evaluation of sort when it comes to DJI and Autel drones. It's part of the fiscal year 2025 National Defense Authorization Act. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting how they specifically, for example, mention companies like DJI and Autel. So it's in this statement here, it says SEC 1709 analysis of certain unmanned aircraft system entities. It says evaluation of communication services and equipment to covered lists. So what does this mean? It says in general, not later than 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, an appropriate national security agency shall determine if any of the following communications or video surveillance equipment or services poses an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States or the security and safety of the United States persons. It says A, communications or video surveillance equipment produced by Shenzhen Dajiang Innovation Sciences and Technologies Company Limited, commonly known as DJI Technologies. Communication or video surveillance equipment produced by Autel Robotics with respect to an entity described in subparagraph A or B, refer to this subparagraph as the name entity. So yeah, specifically with those two companies, I guess they're gonna have to really scrutinize their drone products, whether or not, I guess you could say, there's anything fishy about it, according to them anyways. And then you've seen those other companies, for example, that seem like they're literally selling DJI drones just under a different label. So will they be able to get past like these restrictions, for example? Apparently not, because it says here, any entity to which the named entity has a technology sharing or licensing agreement. So that would include all those other companies like that Anzu Robotics, for example, that you heard about. And it goes on to say communications or video surveillance services, including software provided by an entity described in subparagraphs A and B and or using equipment described in such subparagraphs. This actually makes me wonder whether or not this is more than just drones, for example, like with a company like DJI. Would this include things like their camera software? And what I mean by camera software, for example, they have things like their Osmo Actions, like their action cameras, but apparently for a lot of their products, you have to use their apps, in which for things like Google, for example, like the Android store, apparently there's not an official app on the stores. You have to download the APKs from the actual site. I know that makes a lot of people uneasy, so it makes me wonder if that would be part of this investigation per se, in terms of evaluating all of their products, hardware and software. But yeah, so much news today. People, I guess, sanctioning each other, potentially restricting their products and so forth. Let's see what happens afterwards, huh? Are you gonna start stocking up if you have any of these drone products from these companies, assuming in the future, if they do get banned, it's gonna be really hard for one, let's just say in the US, to actually get their products or replacement parts. All right, see you guys later.